And once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. Just to show how excited I am about my next guest, completely forgot to bring my beer. You know, I always crack a beer open when I start my podcast. Completely forgot. I was kind of almost running late, and I'm so very excited about my next guest. I'm going to be a total fanboy here, so I'm warning you, this is what's coming. All right. Before we get into the next guest, I always like to recap my week. Bittersweet day today. Like I mentioned, I have somebody that I have a lot of respect for, and I admire a lot when it comes to kayak fishing and content creator and tournament angler. And I'm super excited to have him on the show. Bitter part about my day. Unfortunately, today I had to put my dog down. As some of you know that follow my podcast, she's been battling with cancer for the last year or so. She had a stable, quality life. She enjoyed it. She still had fun, but last night, when we got home from work, we noticed something was really wrong with her. She didn't want to eat and all that. So make the call to the hospital, to her doctor. Before we went to the doctor, decided I want to take her to the lake one last time. She really enjoys the lake. She walked up to the dog like she always does. She put her paws, right at the edge of the dog and just gathered on in like she usually does. And then she walked down, got a little swim, and then she hopped back in the car. And then on a high note, went to the doctor and, with the doctor's advice to the decision that at that time was appropriate. So bittersweet day, coming home to an empty house, not knowing that when I open the door, I'm not going to have a furry creature tackle me to death is something that I'm going to have to get used to. But anyways, not going to get into all that. Like I said, I'm super excited about my next guest. Needs no introduction, Mr. Jensen, the Flukemaster himself. I grew up, well, I wouldn't say I grew up. If I say that means he's about 80 years old. So when I moved to Texas, I really wanted to get in, immerse myself in getting my life back together after moving from Puerto Rico. And I picked up bass fishing. I never did bass fishing in Puerto Rico. I did fishing with my dad, throwing a cane with a fluorocarbon. But like I've told before on my podcast, my mom would get up in the morning on Sundays, and I would be with my tackle box and my rod that my dad bought me, and I love fishing. Once I got older, got out of that, and I moved to Texas, then I figured, it's time for me to pick up that hobby again, something that I really love and really passionate about, and wonder why I ever stopped doing it. So I struggled to catch bass. I never fished for bass, and I started watching Flukemaster. Caught my first bass immediately, like a fanboy I am. I emailed Fluke, or Mr. Jensen, I should say, and he immediately replied me and thank you for sharing the story. So it was Texas Wigworm, go figure. But anyways, ever since then, I would have always wanted to meet Gene and talk to him. So we're going to be talking to Mr. Gene Jensen, the Flukemaster, about the origins of the Flukemaster brand, on how he got to it, what he loves about what he does, and where he wants to go with it in the long-term and short-term future. So we're going to quick, before we go to commercials, thank you to my sponsor, Douglas Rod. Go check out Douglas rods at douglasoutdoors.com. If you live in Texas, go check out Fun and Sun Tackle. They have Douglas rods at Fun and Sun Tackle. And again, big shout out to Douglas Rods. We'll go to a quick commercial, and then we bring the Flukemaster. All right, Mr. Gene Jensen, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, man. Stoked to have you on the show, man.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Long fan of what you've done. Let's get right into it. Gene, how did you start at the Flukemaster? I watched a video a long time ago about how you got into it, and I thought that was really interesting. And for those that haven't heard the story, tell us, how you got into building the brand?
Well, Armando, there was so many different things that happened all at once. The main thing was I was a scoutmaster. And I did scouting for 25 years as an adult. And at this particular time, I had I had a few boys that were inner city kids and really didn't have a dad, a grandfather, anybody in the picture, but mom working her tail off to take care of them. And I took them on a camping trip one spring break, and we went fishing. And they absolutely fell in love with it. Every single week they're asking me, when are you going to take us again? When are you going to take us again? Well, the problem is I worked weekend nights at the hospital, 40 hours from Friday night to Monday morning. So I really, except for spring breaks and that kind of stuff, I really couldn't take them fishing every weekend. So I said, you know what? There's this new thing website called YouTube that just popped up about a year ago, and it was the only site that you could host videos for free on. Every other site at the time wanted to charge you money. Notice none of them are around anymore. But and so I taught myself how to edit. I already knew how to shoot pictures and shoot video, but I taught myself how to put it all together. And I started making these simple instructional videos for my scouts, and it just kind of took off. Now, the same point in time, I was also trying to find my spot in the fishing world. I was on staff at bassresource.com, which was a forum that had a ton of people. It was really busy, so we were always talking fishing, and I lived and breathed fishing. But I wanted to find my place in the industry, and I just kind of kept my ear open and my head down and just didn't quit. And I started YouTube. YouTube grew legs, and it just kept growing and growing. Never fast, but it just kept growing, man. And I love it. Absolutely. It's changed my life. That's for sure.
Definitely. By the way, I forgot to mention, congratulations. Go Dogs, man.
Yes,
how do you feel about
Dogs. It? Dude, I'm so freaking stoked. I'm going to the parade and everything on Saturday with my brother, him and I have been through so much with these Bulldogs since we were little kids. So yeah, we're going to have a blast this Saturday.
Congratulations. The first person I thought of when I saw the game was like, oh, Gene, he's got to be in 7th and 9th heaven today.
Oh, I was hit the ceiling I don't know how many times while I was jumping up and down. That's great.
It's been a long time. When I started watching football, I'm talking back in the early 90s, like college football. That's I think the Georgia Bulldogs were forced to be reckoned with. Well, so I'm glad to see.
They've always been good. We've lost an SEC championship by half a yard. We've lost by seconds. We've lost by point. Just stupid things and bad calls and all kinds of stuff. There was an entire referee crew that got suspended after one of our games that we lost because they did such a horrible job. They got suspended for 10 games. And so it's just that's what we've lived through as Georgia fans, is all the really close calls that we never could get over. And so it's about time. But as a Georgia fan, I always want to play Alabama every single year.
Yeah,
every year, no matter what. We're not in the same conference, so we're not in the same. We're in the East. They're in the West. SEC, and so we don't play each other every year. And but to be able to play them and play Alabama, you got to either make it to the SEC championship or the national finals. So it's great.
That's awesome. Well, and going back to the brand Flukemaster, I know there was a point where you kind of flipped the switch, right? You had a job and then you decided you were going to build this brand, and it was kind of like cut and dry. How was that experience? I've heard it, but I'm not sure if all of my listeners heard it. I thought it was a really interesting story.
Well, the most important thing is I didn't quit my day job too early. So this is a really good thing for young kids wanting to do this professionally and everything else, and people just to think about. There's some people that have taken the leap and just jumped with no money and been able to succeed. They have worked the hardest. I had a family, I had a wife, I had a great job as an x-ray tech at a trauma center. I worked weekend nights, so I had weekend differential and night differential, and it was a great paying job. And but I had to make sure that once I quit that job, that nothing would change financially for me and my wife and my family. So I made sure that we always made sure, my wife and I made sure we were living off of one income, one paycheck. And when YouTube finally started paying the same amount as I was making it work, that's when I made the leap. And when I knew it wasn't gonna get any less, that's when I made the leap. Through sponsors, through things like that, they made it possible for me to do this. And so that's the biggest thing, is don't quit your day job. Get something that pays money. A lot of these elite guys are out there and they've got money backups, and so a lot of them have businesses and, are married a really rich woman or whatever. And so it's not a cheap way of going about doing things. I get a little side note, I get these comments every once in a while when I start making a lot of videos for my which is coming up. I get a lot of,
Mm.
oh, you're such a sellout. Oh, you're da da da. Because
That's so stupid.
I hate those videos. I hate promotional videos, and my sponsors know that. But every once in a while, I have to do them, and I always respond with, "How much money did you pay to watch my videos?" And of course, it's nothing. People get to watch them for free, which I love, absolutely love.
Mm.
So I spend about $30,000 to $40,000 a year, so you guys can watch my videos for free. That's why I have sponsors. So
And go ahead.
usually they figure that out after that.
And something that I really appreciate about what you said is your honesty. Like we've talked about, in the podcast, and other anglers, who gets the most respect. Because a lot of times, content creators don't get as much respect in the tournament scene. Well, because it focus on content creator, not tournament. You kind of do both things, right? You got the respect of the content creators, and you have the respect of the tournament angler because you're an accomplished tournament angler.
Right.
You're a great fisherman. You're not a YouTube personality or an Instagram personality. You are you're the Flukemaster, and you know what you're talking about. I watch a lot of your Friday Night Live videos, and I see sometimes, and this is just my opinion, the struggles that you have when people ask you, have you checked out this brand? And every now and then I get a glimpse of how much Gene Jensen hates to have to play this game. And I wanted to touch on that because a lot of people say that's a sellout. And to me, that's not a sellout. I mean, if you, and I know you don't do this, but if you represent a company that you don't believe in, or you would never use their product because you think their products are crap and everything, then that's your prerogative. Now, I know with you, that's different. That you don't strike me as that type of person, but you can see that you would love to have more liberty to talk about other products that you like and you don't like. I remember you talking about being on Mystery Tackle Box, and I correct me if I'm wrong, it came to a point where they decided, you know what, let's go in different directions here because you're being way too honest about our products here in a way that we don't like. So and I remember that.
What happened was, and it's pretty simple, is I lost confidence in their box. Now, their boxes have gotten better since this.
Yeah.
But their boxes had become the bargain bin, had become where companies were sending them the stuff that those companies couldn't sell.
Yeah.
And so I lost confidence in them, and I contacted them and said, I can't do this anymore. I honestly cannot. And they wanted me to talk about how great their boxes were. And I told them, I'm not going to talk about how great your boxes are when I pull a spinnerbait out of a package and the skirt falls off.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. And so, so that's kind of how it went. We didn't lose respect for each other. I'm still really good friends with Ross, the owner. It was a business thing. And we still talk, and I still do things from time to time. I've got some baby bull shads I'm working on a video for them and that kind of stuff. But, it's just one of those things where one thing about me that people will figure out pretty quick is my integrity is everything to me.
Yeah.
I will not lie to you, even if it means I'm going to get myself in trouble. I have quit a job. I quit a sponsor once and lost $32,000 a year because they asked me to lie about a product. I don't do it. I get pissed off beyond belief, and that's me. That's me. And when those questions get asked on Friday Night Live, I don't mind talking about tackle and stuff that's not my sponsors, but if I don't have any experience with a rod and a reel or stuff like that, why do I want to talk about it if I've never used it? Or I haven't used it in so many years that those rods and reels aren't even made anymore. And so that's kind of how I hate those questions, just because I know I can't answer them because I don't know.
Yeah. And that's what like I said, I really appreciate anybody that thinks you're a sellout. I mean, I have no respect for that opinion. I just don't. I've seen your videos. I've watched you over the last 5 years, and I really appreciate that about you. And that's one of the reasons why I always said, if I ever bring a podcast, I want people that's going to be responsible with their content creation, and you definitely is the benchmark for being that. Talking a little bit about MTB, I remember you did a video called YouTubers Invade Texas, and it was with the Guggen Squad. I have to ask you, I didn't ask you in the previous recording.
Yep.
How close were you to being part of the Guggen Squad? Was that ever on the table?
Very close, because this was before the Guggen Squad, and to 100% honest, my first impression of lunkers was not a good one, and so I don't think I wasn't as young as the other guys. I still love and respect all of them, but I knew I couldn't keep up with them.
Yeah.
One of those things. So I was just like, no, it's not for me. And I'm very happy I
Yeah.
that it didn't go that direction. So because I really wanted to keep up what I was doing, because at that time I was still the only person teaching people how to fish on YouTube,
Mhm.
and so that's kind of how I just stayed that way.
And I appreciate it. I know there would have been a lot more money on the table, but just the fact that you rather teach people and rather be yourself, I think it's a testament to anybody that's looking to get into this. Like, you can still make money, be successful, and have your integrity. There's no reason to use quote unquote most overused word in content creation, sellout, right? And again, that's everybody makes their own decision how they're going to represent themselves. What have you enjoyed most, other than teaching? What have you enjoyed most about having that brand, Flukemaster?
Oh man, you know what drives me is stories like yours. Where you come back to me and tell me that you caught your first fish or you caught. I love those stories. My wife sent me a letter or an email from a friend of hers where her son learned how to fish from me, and now they're out fishing together and that kind of stuff. And dad's fishing with kids, and I try to cover the whole gamut of not only just teaching people how to fish, but I try to cover all the way to advanced stuff and new stuff that's out on the market. I didn't do it quite so much this last year, but this year is going to be a lot more. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, about the changes and things that are going on. But I love to help people. And the one thing I knew when I was getting into this as an instructional video YouTuber, I knew I would never grow fast. I knew I would never have a viral video. But I knew that instructional videos lasted and lived a lot longer than vlogs and viral videos and that kind of stuff. They ebb and they don't. My videos constantly have about the same views every year, and so I'm still making a living off of my videos that are 10 years old, 9 years old, so on and so forth. And so I'm comfortable with that as long as my wife can pay the bills and feed my kids, then I'm happy, and she is too. I don't ever want to be rich because I don't want to have to worry about that much money, because I'd end up giving it away anyway. When I have an extra dollar, I'm giving that dollar away, and that's just me. It drives people crazy sometimes. If I had an extra $50 in my pocket the other day from Christmas money that my mom had given me, and I gave it as a tip to the waitress. I mean, it's just because I didn't need it. And so that's kind of how I feel is we're not, me personally, I don't ever want to be wealthy. Don't want to be crazy wealthy. I just want to pay the bills. I tell my sponsors, I say, you're not paying me, you're paying my wife to let me do it. Exactly what I say.
You're bribing her. It's interesting you mentioned that about the content creation, because, and not taking shots at anybody, just something that people can relate to. Like, I can watch just so many videos of Alec Perrick losing a 10-pounder and blaming John B, right? I can watch it 2 or 3 times, that's it. But going back and watching how to throw a wacky rig by Flukemaster, I'll go back to it every time. Like, wait a minute, I've lost confidence. Let me rewatch it. I've rewatched a ton of your 5-6 years ago videos because of that. So you're right. Yeah.
I wonder how much that rod is worth that he slammed on the deck after losing that 6-pounder. Because I own that
6-pounder.
I own that rod. It's mine. He borrowed that rod and reel from me that morning, and that's the one he slammed down on the deck of the boat.
That's an interesting story. I didn't know that. That is a good insight there.
And it held up. I still fish with it every once in a while. It's in the corner of my barn.
Oh, yeah? Maybe on eBay. Get a signature on eBay. It'll be worth something. Oh, my God. That is funny. But yeah, no, going back to it, you're right. I watch videos. I wanted to touch on something. Of course, this is about what's going on with my beanie here. This is about you and not me.
Here,
but
do it this way. Here, wait a minute. Let me.
Oh, like the kids, I watched. So now this is about you, but I wanted to highlight something that it kind of like what you do transcends. And what I mean by that, I'm at one point, one of my best friends, her son was going through a really dog times.
Mhm.
And he's really young at that time. He was 11 years old, and he says, "Could you take him fishing with you?" With fishing with you. He loves that you go fishing. So I did. I took him fishing the first time, and we went to a local pond. Coincidentally, right where John B used to live before he moved to Maine or bought that ranch in Texas. Um, and they had a stock pond that was this famous around here because of their big bass. Anyways, I thought like, what can I teach him? And I watched one of the videos. It says one of the easiest to teach is the drop shot. So I put a fluke on a drop shot. Lo and behold, that kid, the first six casts, and I'm not lying, Gene, caught six crappies. Now there were crappies, but they were huge crappies. He doesn't know the
Nice.
difference. He's never seen a bass. He's never seen a
Right.
crappie. He could carry less. But the first six casts, I've never done it on my first six casts. Now, granted, it was a drop shot and it was crappie that were actually we just happened to cast over a pile. That changed his life in a way that day was, for all the things that he was going through, that day was perfect for him.
Yeah.
And it all comes, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't watched a Flukemaster video on how to use a drop shot.
Right.
Literally. So it's not just how you affect me. And then, like you said on your videos, if you know someone that wants to fish, introduce him to my videos. Let me teach him how to fish. That's kind of like your motto on the end of all your YouTubes. And it's right, man. It's the kind of like the gift that gives on giving.
Yep. Exactly. That's just awesome. And you know what? And in your story, I've heard it several times. It gives people something to live for, something to work for. It's just a hobby. Growing up for me, it was sports and outdoors, and I couldn't be inside to save my life. And if you just give a kid a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10 they turn out great.
Yeah, it has, and he's doing really well now. I'm not gonna say it's because that day, but a lot of things came. That was probably one small grain of salt in things going his way.
Yep.
Talking about a little bit about what you mentioned, the people that go through things, and I know you don't talk about it, but I've heard from other people, and I know that you do a lot of work that you are not one to tell about, but you do a lot of work helping people with PTSD, especially retired Marines officers, law enforcement, first responders. How is that? And I know you mentioned on your podcast, I mean, not on your podcast, on your live shows and some of the videos, you at some point battle with depression as well. How does that fit into your life? Being able to help somebody and being able to relate to what they're doing and using fishing as a vessel to, how important is that in your life?
I get an old story. My mom taught me how to serve other people and how to do it quietly, and you don't want to get recognition for it. And she said it's the Christ-like way to do it. You just do it quietly and don't expect anything in return. And we had an old gentleman that lived about 3/4 of a mile down the road. And if you ever seen the TV show In the Heat of the Night, that's the city I grew up in. And so I'd push my lawnmower as a push mower up a hill and down one of these roads past all these pretty southern homes that you see in that TV show to his little bitty house that's around the corner. Well, he had a heart attack. He couldn't mow his lawn anymore. And once a week I would do that and go mow his lawn, and never expected anything in return. Turn around and come back home. He always, him or his wife, depending on how he felt, would come out and bring me a can of Sprite every week. And I would drink that can of Sprite and I'd go home. But I learned from my mother how to serve other people. And when I got the opportunity to start taking fellow soldiers out fishing, I was in the Army from 96 to 02. I was a medic and an x-ray technician, and friends with a lot of SF guys and a lot of guys who disappeared after 9/11 for 2-3 years, and went overseas. And working with these guys and understanding a little bit of what they go through, just because I'm not afraid to ask the questions, how they're feeling and that kind of stuff. I want you guys to imagine this. Okay. If you've been in Afghanistan and you've been in battle and you've had car bombs and bombs blow up next to you and EIDs blow up next to you and everything else, you're driving in a car, and you're back home. You're in the States. You're driving in a car. You're at a stoplight, and you got a car right here that's turning left on your left side. You got a car on your right side, and you got one behind you. These guys are waiting for one of those cars to blow up in their head, and it's you're talking about the anxiety levels going through the roof. You get them out on a boat, you get them into a kayak, especially a kayak. I don't know what it is about a kayak and a guy that's got PTSD, but you get them out there on the water where there's nothing around them but water. Put a rod in their hand, whether they catching fish or not. I've had several of them turn to me and say, "Dude, this is magic."
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have any anxiety. They don't feel like there's something going to happen, and to give them that opportunity, even for a short amount of time. Now, I've got a really good friend who's a psychiatrist in the military, still is, and he used to hook me up with some of his worst, hardest patients, and I'd take them out. So these weren't just the ones that claimed to have PTSDs. These were ones that had it big time. And to get them out there and to see that, it's worth it. It's worth it. I do it quietly. I try to do it on the lake. I haven't done it much lately, but I finally got permission to. There's a state-owned lake right up the road from me that's closed from the 10th to the end of the month, the 10th of each month to the end of the month, closed to the public. But they've told me that if I ever need it, all I have to do is ask them, and they'll come unlock the gate, and I'll go in and we'll fish in a lake by ourselves, no problem. And so it's great to have. It's great to have, and I'm sure that'll happen at least once or twice this year.
That's amazing, and the fact that you can put other people and and serve other people, like you mentioned, do it without recognition, and putting sometimes people even ahead of your own what you wanted to do, ahead of your own personal gain, is something that I think a lot more people need to listen to that. And I know you're quiet about it, but I really wanted to bring it to the forefront, not because I think it helps other people that are listening that says, you know what, there is a way that you can grow, you can make your name in this industry, in the kayak fishing world, by being good people, by putting other people's interest ahead of yours sometimes, not always, and by just doing the small things and having integrity. And I think more people like you on the kayak fishing industry is always welcome. We have a great community. Granted, there's always clickbaits and other stuff that goes around, but in the most part, we need to nourish what we have right now. Follow that same path, within my own personality and all that, to help other people and to grow and have integrity. Now that you kind of like have built your brand, the Flukemaster, where do you see yourself going with this in 2022 and beyond?
Whew, beyond, I don't know, but 2022, I pretty much got it planned out. I decided this fall that I was going to take about 2.5 months off from filming, kind of make sure all my gear is good and batteries right and everything else, but mainly my head. I really want to increase my content, and I don't feel like I can do it sitting here and working in this general area. I really got to do something. I had to do something different. I had a pretty good tournament season this last season. I did not fish full time tournaments. I piddled around. I did I did a couple of majors and then a whole bunch of little tournaments, and I did really well. And so I decided this fall that I was going to do go all out with KBF trail tournaments, and they got the new Pro Series, or the Pro Series, back out and running. They shut it down for COVID, and so it's back up. And so starting Monday, I travel down to Florida. I'm going to try to get to each place a week or two ahead of time, so I can go and do content and really focus on what I am really good at, which is my instructional videos. And then also I use the quote lightly, but a vlog style tournament video where I kind of try to commentate while I'm fishing the tournament. I'm totally stealing in that idea from Greg Blanchard. I'm following his kind of his format for tournaments because he does such a good job, and I've been really bad at it, in the past. And so I'm going to try to kind of play around with what he does and make it somewhat my own. Great guy, great content, and I love his stuff. So it's a good person to follow after. But I'm fishing. The tournaments I'm fishing is Florida, Arizona, South Carolina, Gunnersville, Alabama, Utah.
Wow, Utah.
And where else? Maybe California. If I do good on a few of those tournaments and get some money, putting them in the till, I'll go to California and fish Clear Lake. I might do Ohio. The only problem is it's the very weekend before I cast, and that's when I go down to Florida and work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I may not do that one, but that's the plan, is to fish a full tour of KBF. And KBF, I feel, we've got Hobie, we've got KBF, we've got Bass. KBF, I feel, is the one that can facilitate making more kayak fishermen professionals, where they do it professionally, where they do it full time, and they fish tournaments full time. I really feel like KBF can do that in the future. Now that Chad has kind of stepped back and gotten a lot of his hands out of the office side of it, and is really, trying to get his own with his content, it allows KBF to grow legs and really do a really good job, or a really good thing for people. And my goal is to help promote it to where maybe in 4 or 5 years, there's 60, 70, 80 guys and girls out there that are fishing kayak tournaments professionally. That's what I'd like to see anyway.
That's a good take what you mentioned about KBF. Now let me ask you this, because I actually wanted to ask you this towards the end, but now that we're in the subject, you say KBF has, and you're right, I think they do. I agree with you. I think they do have the clearest highway or avenue to make it to the Pro Series, just because of what they're doing and what they've done in the past. Whereas Hobie BOS, it's kind of like their own Elite Series, and it's a great series. Yeah. But it's different, right, than KBF and Bass Nation. Bass Nation came out. All of us in kayak fishing were super excited. It's been the 3rd year. Me personally, I feel like, okay, you listened to what the tournament anglers wanted, and you apply some of this. But at the same time, I scratch my head in some decisions. So I'm like, how do you come conclusion this is a good idea? My personal take on it is there's a loss of identity. Yeah. You want to appeal to the masses, but you want to appeal to the tournament anglers, and by doing so, you're not making either one happy.
Yeah.
Case in point,
I felt like we were the little stepbrother.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of disorganization.
Yeah.
They came in. My biggest issue because of the way, and I'm one of the few that would have a serious problem with this. Well, I guess not, because a lot of guys have full-time jobs they got to work around, but their schedules always come out way too late.
Yep. And
so it's hard for me to say, okay, I'm going to fish a full schedule of BASS tournaments, but they don't come out until I've already had to commit to KBF, and had to commit to sponsors, and had to commit to traveling here, there, and everywhere, and I just can't make it work. I think BASS will work if they get more organized. I think it'll continue to grow. But KBF has, you're right, a clear path. They're not attached to a big sponsor like Hobie. Hobie is Hobie. The Hobie tournaments are designed to sell more Hobies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't see that going anywhere. It might, who knows? I could be completely wrong. And I'm going to fish a couple of them this year. But
oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try. I'm not putting it in stone yet, but I hope to. So it just depends on schedules. And but it'd be neat to see some, one of them do it. And I think KBF has the best chance of having
more liberty,
a something similar to the Elite Series, where these guys are sponsored and able to do it full time. I'd love to see it.
See, like the idea of their kind of 4-year program to get to here into really an Elite Series where people can actually make some real money out of it. Do you see it working out? Is there anything there that you see like, this could get better? Or do you realistically, in the opinion, like this can work out, this will work out if if it's obviously if it sticks to the plan.
Right. It has the best chance of working out. We all know Chad. We all know KBF. We all know that things change a lot.
Yeah.
I consider myself one of Chad's best friends, but I'll be the first one to tell you that he changes his mind like we change our underwear, and so where it goes is all dependent on us, really.
Yeah.
Because Chad didn't come to me and say, "Hey, will you promote KBF? Will you fish KBF tournaments?" I went to him and said, "Chad, I'm fishing the whole tour this year, as many tournaments as I can. What can I do to help?" And so that's how that worked. He didn't come to me. I don't want any money in return. I don't want anything. I just want to help. And so, matter of fact, I talked to him today, but it was about something totally unrelated. He called to congratulate me about the Bulldogs. But it's just, I see it being able to go as far as $200,000 payouts for the national championship, that kind of stuff. Will it happen in 5 years? That's wishful thinking, but it's good to have goals. It's good to have plans and
ambitious goals. Yeah.
And if it's half that, I'm going to be ecstatic. In 5 years, if the national champion is back to making $100,000 and one sponsor didn't have to foot half the bill, I'm all for it. It'd be great. So we'll see. We'll see. All I know is that I'm going to fish it and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to hope that more people jump on board and it just gets so big that people can't ignore it anymore.
Definitely. No, I agree with you on that one. And I think it will. We mentioned Bass Nation. I think there has to be somebody that's actually a kayak tournament angler calling the shots over there. And Bass just saying, we'll kind of bring the name in it, get your cut, but just kind of stay away from the decision making because it's not good. Yeah. That's my thoughts. Anyway,
I am upset that I didn't fish it this last year and qualify for the championship, because it's on a lake that I fished a lot when I lived in Augusta. So they're fishing Lake Greenwood, which is an amazing, really, really good lake. It's got great largemouth and great spot. It's got spotted bass in it. I think I was one of the first ones that anybody had ever heard of catching a spotted bass out of Lake Greenwood 12, 15 years ago. And now they're all over the lake. So
nice. Here you go. Another like trophy in the trophy case, I guess you could say.
It blew us all away. When I took pictures of it and sent it to some buddies who fished it regularly, they didn't believe me. So,
any chance we'll see you in Texas? I know you're not a big Texas fan. I've known you said it before.
It's not Texas. It's Lake Fork. I always break something at Lake Fork. So years and years ago, I took a bass resource trip. We met at Lake Fork and we fished. And I had borrowed my father-in-law's boat, and I broke his trolling motor and his transducer off of it.
Oh yeah.
And then a few years later, we went back and I had my own boat, and I broke that trolling motor and transducer. And then year before last, we went to Lake Fork. I broke my prop off of my Torpedo on the last day of practice, and I was paddling during the tournament. And I was 3.5 miles. My spot was 3.5 miles from the boat ramp, so I didn't get to fish my spot, and I caught one fish the whole day. And so Lake Fork and I don't get along really well, and I was in boat lanes when I broke my Torpedo, I was in the boat lane and I hit a tree. So
yeah, and this year the water level should be somewhere between 6 and 12 feet lower. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, pretty much. Other than Lake Fork, any other lake you fished over here in Texas? I know you went to Yamamoto's ranch. By the way, thank you. In one of the live videos before I went to Yamamoto, I actually was one of those that sent like $5. I was cheap, I'll be honest. I sent like a $5, donation in a question of like, let me see if you'll answer my question. Where can I catch him on Yamamoto's ranch? And you did actually answer my question, and I did catch it exactly where you said I would catch him. So thank you for that.
In that tree right out in front of the dam.
Yep.
I like to fish. What's the name of that lake? Belton. I fished a tournament on Belton years ago. It was a Wounded Warrior tournament, and I knew better. As soon as I heard people calling, they had a nickname for a fish that was 1/8 of an inch short and wasn't a keeper. It was called a Belton Bullet. And when people started saying that, I said I should have just backed out and gone home, because I caught 40 Belton bullets and 2 keepers that day. And so Lake Belton was one. I fished several others. What's Lake Athens?
The really grassy lake in East Texas.
I fished that one with Lake Fort guy.
Oh yeah.
And that one was a blast. I had a lot of fun. And then a couple of more I can't remember the names of. So
now I heard, and I don't know how true it is, but I heard from quite a few people, Lake Athens, where they release some of the Sri Lanka big bass that people donate when they catch them to get that Sri Lanka prices.
I would think they would, because the hatchery is right next door. So I would think they might do that.
Yeah. So yeah, they have some big bass at Athens. What are your goals for tournament fishing? Aside from the content creation, what would you like? What in your mind would be successful? Other than obviously winning it all, but what would be a successful tournament season?
My main goal is I want to fish in the 10 this next year. I want to finish in the top 10 in points. Is my main goal. And so, and I did well enough in the tour tournaments or the trail tournaments that I fished last year. I did well enough to say, okay, if I did this 8 times, 3 of them will be top 10 worthy, And so, that's my goal. That's the biggest one. I'm always at the 10 house. Like after this, the 10 is the end of this month.
Yeah,
basically first of next month. And so we fished the 10 Invitational, which I qualified for, and the trail series tournaments and the pro series tournaments down there. And then I stay for the 10 and I film for Chad. And I get to follow these guys around, and I get to, help around, behind the scenes and that kind of stuff. And I love it. Absolutely love doing it. But I want to be fishing in it. I want to go and fish the 10 with these guys. So that's my biggest goal. And I think that's the elite of the elite. That's the best of the best. It always is. And if you guys have never watched the videos on the 10 from Kayak Bass Fishing, you need to go watch them, because it's amazing. These guys grind all year to be able to get this, and they always want to get back to it. Now, other than that, everything else is just a tournament. But for me, that's a goal. I really want to finish in the top 10.
As far as your content creation, what are you looking for 2022 as far as your own personal success? Like, are you looking into other getting other sponsorship? Are you looking into making some, like you mentioned a little bit about the tournament videos of it? Other than that, anything specific that you want for your brand for you to consider this is a successful year for the Flukemaster brand, not necessarily the tournament?
I'm going to go back. I'm going back to editing most of my videos. My son's still going to edit like my instructional ones that are really simple that I can send to him while I'm on the road, and he knows exactly how to do them, and they're pretty easy and straightforward. But the vlogging style and the tournament videos, I'm going to have to edit, because it's a nightmare if you're not there in the boat with me, getting everything right. And so my biggest thing is that I want to double my production. I want 100 videos by the end of the year.
Wow.
I don't want it to include my Friday night lives, which may be moving to Monday or Tuesday nights because of date night. We talked about that before this started. But I still am going to be teaching. I'm going to be teaching every chance I get. I want people to feel like they're on the boat with me, and I'm guiding them, or I'm instructing them as I'm learning, as I'm learning what's going on the lake. Maybe a video of pre-fishing, at least one. I think two is too many a lot of times. Just one good video about pre-fishing, and then one good video about a tournament, whether it's a 1 day or a 2 day. And then the rest of it's all going to be instructionals or new baits or that kind of stuff. I'm not looking for any new sponsors. I stopped looking 8 years ago. They come to me, and if I believe in their stuff, I use it. If I don't believe in their stuff, I don't use it. And so that's kind of how that works. But my sponsors are great. They've always been good to me. I'm loyal to a fault. And they're what's making it possible for me to do this. would I do this without sponsors? You bet I would. You know, that's the biggest thing is if I could do this on my own, if I could pay for my bills and feed my kids without sponsors, I wouldn't have them. But they're a necessity. And because they're a necessity, then I owe them my loyalty because they're making it work. They're making it happen. And so that's kind of how that's working. But yeah, this year is going to be really fun. I want to get back to the grind. I want to lose about 35, 40 pounds to where I feel better. This Thanksgiving, I gained 12 pounds this Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so it's all going to come off while I'm traveling. And as that happens, I'll get more energy and I'll feel better and I'll make more videos. And it's just going to be a good, fun time.
Get you more into those Hobie BOS, make you paddle instead of using your Torpedo motor.
Well, I've got the new P127 sitting right outside this door. It's totally unrigged. I haven't even set in it yet, but I'm going to take that down to Florida and start pedaling a little bit. I hope that I can do it because the last time I pedaled one of the egg beater style boats, I have a bad hip from the Army and a bad knee, and so that style of pedaling, it really hurt me. But I think it's because the seat was so low in the Jackson that it hurt. And now the seat's higher in this P127. I'm hoping that's a difference. And I mean, I was out for 2 weeks. I couldn't walk for 2 weeks after I pedaled that Jackson. So we're going to find out with this one. If my hip even begins to start hurting, I'm grabbing my paddle and paddling back to the truck. So we will definitely find out.
Get the total body workout.
Yeah, exactly. You know, little bumps and bruises from being in the Army, but that's about all it is. But we'll see. It's a great boat. It's fast. Everybody that says that pedals it says it pedals really smooth and nice and everything else. But like I tell everybody, we'll see. Let me get in the boat. Let me get some hours under in the seat and let me figure it out whether I like it or not, and then I'll let you know.
So there you go. For those out there listening, if you ever wonder if the Jackson kayak is going to be good, follow the Flukemaster. He'll give you his honest opinion. The bonafide, or whatever kayak he uses, you'll get the lowdown, the real lowdown.
You can get my honest opinion for sure, you know. And I'm going to tell you straight up, if I can pedal it, you'll see me in it. So I'm excited about it. It's a good boat. The guys that already have it and pedal it, they love it. I'm still going to have motors on my boat though. I'm still going to have that SS127 with a motor guide on the front and going to be, you know, fishing out of it. That'll be my tournament boat. I've spent so many hours getting it perfect.
Yeah.
That I don't want to change boats right now. And I don't foresee me going to a P127 because it just doesn't have as much storage. And if you've seen my boat, it is completely rigged out.
Yep.
So
sweet machine.
That'll be one of my next couple of videos too, is my rigging of that kayak. Because as a matter of fact, I hope to film it tomorrow or the next day, and then get it out by the time I leave to Florida.
Nice. Well, Jane, I know you have like I said, you have a busy schedule. I appreciate you taking the time. We're kind of winding it down, so I don't want to keep you too long. A couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask you before we end it. We kind of touched on it a little bit about how content creation and, you know, and how to, you know, keep your integrity. You paid your dues to the point where now sponsors look at you. You're not looking for sponsors. For people that are just starting this or considering starting this, what would your advice be to them? Obviously, they're not going to get sponsors knocking at their door like you will. So how do they go from starting off to getting to where you are? What would be the one advice you would give them?
The same advice I got from Mike Buca that makes the Buca bull shad.
Yep.
Years and years ago, long before he started making swim baits. Him and I have been friends since 2001 is when I first met him. And he was already in the industry. He was a guide. He piddled around with making baits, but he didn't start making swim baits until probably 5-6 years after that. But he told me, he was like, Gene, he's like, you've got to make yourself valuable to them. And the way you did it back then is similar to the way you do it now, except we've got social media, is you just do things for them because you believe in the product. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you for instance, you fall in love with, like, my fishing line of choice is Seagar. In 2006, I caught a personal best of 9.98 pounds out of the grass on 8-pound test Seaguar Invisex on a spinning rod. And it ripped grass up. It was milfoil. It ripped grass up. It was just a giant. And had it not been late summer, it would have been a 12 to 13, 14-pound bass. But it was 9.98 skinny. And it was a testament to me how good Seaguar was. And so I started using Seaguar in 2006. Fast forward to 2018, 2019, or 2017. I got introduced to, this was after YouTube started, I got introduced to the president of Seaguar and the vice president. And I told him how much I love their product, blah, 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 everything else. And so it didn't start then. Then I knew who to contact. So I would do things for Seaguar. I'd say, I'd show and I'd keep track of it. And once a quarter, I would send them a quarterly report. Write it down, send it to them. This is what I did for you this quarter. This is what I did for you this quarter. This is what I did for you this quarter. And after about, I can't remember, a year and a half after that, they finally decided they wanted, they finally came to me and said, hey, let's do something. Let's work something together. Because they knew who I was. I was on their radar. And that's when it happens. That's when you can start to do this start doing this and working towards doing it for a living. But you've got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. Make yourself more valuable to them than they are to you. And don't fake it, because you can only fake it for so long before people realize you're full of crap. And for me, if I can't commit to something, or if I fail on a commit, and something I committed on, I go to him and say, look, dude, I failed. I didn't do it. I wasn't able to do it. Or I'm sorry. Let's make it right. Always that integrity is huge. Another thing to remember is this industry is super small.
Yep.
Very, very small. Everybody knows everybody. And so it doesn't take long for somebody to pick up on the phone and say, hey, John, can you tell me about this guy, Joe, that I keep hearing about? What do you think? What's your opinion? So I get that a lot. I get guys calling me a lot. What are your opinion on this, 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 and this, especially YouTubers, And so, because I guess that's my world. But anyway, but the biggest thing is to understand is you just got to work and grind. And like I said before, don't quit your day job before you can. And you'll get it. You'll get it, dude. But you gotta put in the time and put in the effort to do it.
Definitely. Quick kind of section of rapid questions. Favorite bait? If you can only, let me rephrase that. If you can only use one bait for the rest of your life, you can only throw one bait, what bait would it be?
If I wasn't if it was just a bait to fish for fun, it'd be a jig. 100% a jig, because I get really giddy when I'm on a good jig bite. Yeah, I am the happiest I will ever be on the water when I'm catching fish on a jig. It's a different kind of bite. You're catching bigger fish. It's just a blast. Now, if I had to survive doing it, if it's something I had to do because I had to catch a fish, one or two baits, a straight tail worm or a chatterbait.
I figured. I was like, he's going to say chatterbait. He's going to say chatterbait. By the way, that video let me pause you right there for a second. That video you did on the best chatterbaits, which was the Picasso, the Jackhammer, and the Thunder Cricket.
Yeah.
Anybody that's interested in watching, and I'm speaking to the audience right now, if you're interested in learning and picking a chatterbait, watch that video. Gene, what's the title of that video? Because that video is awesome.
I can't remember off the top of my head. You just go look. I don't ever call it a bladed jig. So go on my channel, click on the little magnifying glass that's on my channel page, and type in chatterbait, and you'll be able to find it, and it was one I did last year, so it's going to be one of the more recent ones. But yeah, I talk about the reasons why you want to pick certain chatterbaits, and there are other reasons why you can't. And the biggest reason is that Z-Man owns the patent on the on attaching the blade directly to the jig head. and they strongly enforce it. And the only reason why Picasso was able to do it is because they are able to accomplish the same thing by getting that blade to hit that jig head, but with a different attachment. And then Strike King paid to, or got licensing to be able to do that with the Thunder Cricket.
Every time somebody asks me, why do you like the Jackhammer so much? Let me send you a link of the Flukemaster, and he can explain it better to you. But it does get result, though.
I don't even want to talk about it. That's the one, I'm friends with the guys out at Z-Man, and I could call them and email them and get whatever I wanted with Z-Man for Z-Man if I wanted it. I have bought every single jackhammer I've got because I know they don't make a whole lot of money because everybody's got their hand in the till for the money they make on the jackhammer. And so I'm just like, and I'm organizing my tackle right now, getting ready for the tournament series. Dude, I don't even want to talk about how many jackhammers I didn't know I had. Because I'll buy a few here, buy a few there when I'm traveling on the road and everything else. I found two today in one of my boxes, still in the package. And I'm like, I'm such an idiot for spending this much money on jackhammers.
Once you get on a jackhammer bite, you have to have two, because if you lose one, you're like, okay, now I need another one. So you're not buying one. You need to buy two or three.
I got more jackhammers than I got crankbaits. It's stupid.
That is hilarious. If you couldn't fish for bass, smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, no bass, what fish would you fish for? Out of fun. Let's just say fun.
Redfish.
Redfish, nice. Good answer.
I love to go down to Louisiana and fish for red drum in the Louisiana marsh. It's just, I told my wife if we lived in Louisiana, I would never catch another bass again in my life. It is so much fun. And I have not had the opportunity to take my kids down there to do it. And so for spring break this year, right after the Louisiana tournament, my son's flying to Shreveport, getting in the truck with me, and we're going down to Louisiana, to Pointe-aux-Chenes, Louisiana, and we're going to redfish for spring break for his senior trip. So I can't wait.
I almost forgot to ask you, and this is kind of like going back, I almost ended the show, but I have to ask you, how does it feel to have your son competing with you and kind of following in your footsteps, like joining the family business kind of thing?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It's fun. It's really fun. Him and I, so I'm the biggest trash talker that I know of. When you're in a boat with me or you're fishing with me, I'm going to talk trash.
Really?
I tell people, so you better have thick skin, because I'm going to beat you up verbally. And I love to do it. I do it to him, and he does it right back. If you guys ever catch a video with me and him in it, and and I'll catch a giant one, he'd turn, Dad, I hate you. You gotta stop. He does he gets so mad at me when I catch big fish, and especially if we're fishing against each other. But it's just a blast. It's really fun. And at the national championship, for the 3-day tournament, I beat him by 1/4 of an inch. That was
I remember
1/4 of an inch. And everybody was like, well, why didn't you just let him beat you? I'm like, I do not want my son to beat my 90%. I want him to beat my 110%.
Yeah.
Because if he's good enough to beat my 110%, then he earned it.
Yeah.
But if he beats my 90% because I slack off to let him win, he did not earn it. And I learned that from my father, and I feel that way 100%. I want him to work hard, and I want him to be happy and proud that he beat his dad's 110%.
I agree with you on that, in the sense that whenever I fish a tournament, I see a big name on the tournament. I fished one this year in Lake Fork when I saw Mark Pendergraph, who had just won, the Possum Kingdom, hence the Possum King name. And Brian Howell, great angler from California, moved to Texas, who was, I think, leading the Hobie BOS in points at that point. And I always said, it's intimidating, but I always said, I want to be number one, and I want Brian Howell and Mark Pendergraph, no particular order, to be 2 and 3. I want to say I beat them at their A game. I don't want to look and say, oh, well, he's skunk, he wasn't on a bike. No, I want to beat them at their A game. And I'm not trash talking. Brian Howell knows me. Mark Pendergraph knows me. He knows how much respect I love it. But it's that respect. You want to beat the best at the best. It's not hating on it. It's actually showing respect. If I'm on the water and I see Gene Jensen, you better believe that I want to beat Gene Jensen. He's my idol. But heck yeah, you want to say you beat the Flukemaster, right? That's a compliment, right?
I guess.
It's not gonna happen. Don't worry about it.
that tournament on in Louisiana, that KBF National Championship was just a blast. I knew I wasn't going to win it. I knew I wasn't on the fish to win it. My goal that tournament was to find enough fish where both him and I would catch a limit every day, is what I wanted to do. And so we did. We caught good fish. I was 25th, he was 27th. And so that's how we finished, which was amazing. And everybody else, the cool thing, and one of the things, I guess I can say it because the tournament's over, but we weren't fishing cypress trees. We weren't fishing.
Yeah, you were fishing offshore points, right?
We were fishing offshore. We were fishing bluegill beds, but the bluegill weren't spawning at all. There was no bluegill anywhere around the beds. They were just bass. And the reason they were there is that all summer long, the bluegill had been spawning, and they fanned out those beds all the way down to hard bottom, all the way down to sand. And the bass were hanging out down there because that was the only hard bottom available. And so
that's great insight.
You would side scan it, and you'd see the bass on the beds, but it looked like bluegill on the bed in these little potholes. Now, Caddo has the biggest bluegill beds I've ever seen in my life. They were giant, hundreds of feet long, and there'd be 20 or 30 bass hanging out in these bluegill beds. And so the first day we threw chatterbaits, and it was slow rolling a chatterbait just over the bluegill beds, and they would take it to the back of their throats, just kill it. And so we caught a bunch of fish first day. Second day, they were swiping at it but weren't hitting it. So I found out that if you yo-yoed it just a little bit, got about 6 or 7 inches off the bottom, and just yo-yoed it through those beds, again, all the way to the back of their throats. I mean, had to get the pliers out and get a chatterbait out of the back of the fish's throat. The third day, Jordan figured this one out. Again, the bite was a little tougher. We were beating them up pretty good, but I had 49 bluegill beds I was fishing. So I had plenty of
you counted the bluegill beds.
Lots. We had found in practice. We spent 3 days looking for bluegill beds and marking them on our GPS. That's all we did for 3 days.
That's great insight.
And so they weren't biting very good. And Jordan had popped his up really high once, and he said, "Dad, the fish grabbed it, came 2 feet out of the water, and went right back down with it." And I set the hook, and it was all the way in the back of his throat. So I started stroking a chatterbait as hard as I could stroke it. And they never hit it on the fall. They always hit it on the way up. And so that was a ticket. We didn't catch as many fish because you would pull it so hard, you'd get it over top of too many of the fish. They just never got it good, or never could get to it. But the ones that got to it, you'd get it really, you'd catch them deep in the back of their throats. So really cool bite. Really cool to watch the progression from day to day.
That's a gem of information right there. Real quickly before I let you go, I have to ask, if Jordan ever beats you, how bad is he going to trash talk you, and how long is he going to get grounded?
He's usually good for about a week. So he did beat me in a KBF state challenge series the year before last. And that was amazing to watch because we had 1 day to fish it. It's a 1 month long tournament.
Yeah.
But we only had one day to fish it because we left and went on vacation the next day. And so we entered the tournament, we went out, and it was a hot summer day, miserable. It's in July, and by noon to 1 o'clock, he was ready to go home. He hadn't caught any fish. I had caught 5 or 6. He hadn't caught anything. He's like, "Dad, I want to go home." I said, "Well, go back to this one spot. I'll be there in a minute. Just go set up, and I'll be there in a minute." And so I caught up with him, and as I'm passing him, he's casting away from me. And I look at my side scan, and I see this school of giant fish lined up on this drop in between me and him. And I said, "Jordan, turn around." He's okay. "Throw your jig," or whatever he's fishing. I said, "Throw," and almost hit my boat, and let it sink to the bottom and drag it back to your boat. He got it halfway to his boat and caught a 6.5 pounder.
Wow.
And I sat there for the next hour and a half or 2 hours and watched him catch 110 inches.
Wow.
And I was just like, this is awesome. And he had the angle and I didn't. I tried to catch him. I didn't say I was going to lay down and let him catch him, but I tried, but I was not going to go take his angle, his casting angle. I stayed on my side, but they wanted it coming up that drop and not off that drop. And he wrecked them. And it was, as a dad, I was like, this is just fun to watch. And so we had to wait the entire month to find out whether he won or not, because because the tournament's not over at the end of the month and everybody's still fishing. So
Yeah.
But he ended up, that was his first win, so that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I've had you all over an hour now, so and I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, getting ready to go to Florida. I want to give you a couple of minutes for you to shout out your sponsors or thank whoever you want to thank. If you want to thank the CEO of Flukemaster, like we talked about, your AKA your wife, that one, your boss lady, the real CEO of Flukemaster. Anybody you want to thank, go right ahead.
Oh, I do want to thank my sponsors. I don't do that enough. I've got Flukemaster, or not Flukemaster. I got 13 Fishing Rods and Reels that have been with me for 7 years. They're the first company that believed in me and gave me the opportunity when so many other people had no clue what YouTube was and whether it was going to be a moneymaker for them. 13 Fishing was great. Seaguar Fishing Line, like I said earlier. Bonafide Kayaks, Yak Attack, kayak accessories. Those two, you'll see the rigging video when I pop it up. It is, they make it easy. I don't have to make crap out of PVC pipe anymore. And then there's YOLO Tech that also makes camera mounts for my big boat, and battery accessories and that kind of stuff. Gosh, who else? Bending Branches paddles, Motor Guide motors, that new XI3 kayak motor. When I say a game changer, I hate that word. I hate that phrase. People call things a game changer. The only thing that's a game changer to me is when it changes the way I fish. And the XI3, anything with spot lock or pinpoint or whatever they call it is a game changer, because it will change the way you fish. Okay. And so that's key. It being able to stop and stay out in the middle in the wind and not have to drop an anchor on the fish's head in order to hold still and that kind of stuff. It makes all the difference in the world. But love them, absolutely love them. I'm trying to think of everybody else. NRS, they make my PFDs and then let me think. Gosh, Alumacraft boats, which my next one's going to have a Mercury motor on the back, but I'm not sponsored by them. And I'm sure I'm forgetting people. JJ's Magic, which is, I guarantee, JJ's Magic oldest sponsor, but that was by default. That was more of, that's a really cool story. If you guys have never heard of JJ's Magic, it's a dipping dive for soft plastics, and I just believe in it. And I believed in it for many, many, many years. But I became good friends with JJ, the owner. And he approached me one Thanksgiving years and years ago when Facebook was just getting going good. And he's like, dude, I'm not making any money. I'm going to have to quit. I'm going to have to close up shop and sell the business. And I said, no, you're not. And I had a good coming to Jesus meeting with JJ. I was like, you're going to stop giving away your product to people who aren't going to talk about it. You're going to no longer approve a pro staff position without sending it to me first. I basically told him, I'm taking over your pro staff and I'm taking over your marketing. And I started marketing with Facebook. I brought on 2 high school kids, 3 college kids, and 4 other adults that were into social media. And we took JJ's Magic from being unknown to known in about a year and a half. And so I'm loyal to him because he's the most amazing man I've ever met. Give the shirt off his back. He was a sheriff's deputy out of Midtown Atlanta for 30 some odd years. So imagine the stuff he's been through. Yet he still treats people like they're golden. And so JJ's is awesome. He's a good dude and makes a great product. And I didn't want to see it come off the market. Is the biggest reason, because it puts fish in the boat. That's all I got to say. Let's see, Gamakatsu Spro, 13 Fishing Baits, and I think that's it. There might be a few more I'm missing, but that's what it takes to pay the bills. There you go. It's fun. This is something I never thought would ever happen. This was not me being a YouTuber, me being well known. I hate to say famous, but well known. I never imagined it. Never really never really worried about it. I just did what I felt was right. I did what I wanted to do, and didn't quit. And the difference between me and a lot of YouTubers is I'm the one that didn't quit. And so anybody that's aspiring to do this, just don't quit. If you come to me and say, "Hey, I'm about to start a YouTube channel," the first thing out of my mouth, I promise, I'm going to tell you is, "Why haven't you started yet? Why are you still talking about it? You've got a cell phone that shoots video. Go shoot video and learn everything else as you go. And you'll make mistakes. Everybody does. You're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be a John B right out of the block.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to edit like that. I'll never be able to edit like that. But do what you got to do, but just don't quit." So
that's good advice. And like I said, you had so many sponsors. You paid your dues. You did it with integrity. You set an example for other people. It's not about the clickbait. It's about each one of us following what we believe in, being honest with ourselves, and not always putting our best interests. Being flexible and sometimes putting other people's best interests in order to grow. And again, Fluke, we could always use more of you in every community. We are blessed that you're in the kayak fishing community and decided to do that instead of NASCAR or any other pro sport or activity, outdoor activity. So we thank you. Lucky to have you. We look forward to what you got next, both in your tournament career and in your content creation or as a creator career. And wish you the best. And again, amazing job what you've done, and can't thank you enough for taking the time to be on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
So for those out there listening, if you listen to the show, please wear your PFD because you're going to be on the water. Remember, just because it's bass, kayak, and beers, I'm not telling you to go out there and drink beer while you're in the fishing. If you are going to drink some beers, just make sure you do it responsibly. Stay safe with your PFDs. Also, big thank you to my sponsor, Douglas Rod. Go check out douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup. Have a great day, everyone. Peace out.